Well, hello everybody. Explosive. I just spent the last 3 hours going over the US budget, and I knew of it more than a week ago as it was published, at least in resolution on the 18th of February. I actually should have tagged Jason Skomolsky in this live. He was pretty upset too that one, the Doge is worth $1 trillion. I mean, that's great. Clean up that is missing. Savings needed to be $4.5 trillion. They're only going to be two overall, and it's spread over 2025 to 2033. Now, folks, I read the entirety of it. I don't care what media says. I never do. Just like Canada and Canada's federal budget, we're going to go through all of that, just how important Canada, the 51st state, cherished really is, and how central that is to Donald J. Trump today. We're going to go through things that you will never hear completely in the resolution and all that massive document that I went through, and I give it to you. I give you these screenshots that we're going to look at. You can open it up on that website. There's the name of it. Go look at yourself. Managerial accounting. I'm an economist. Always been very good at reading accounting. That's my background. And of course, from there, that's what economists do, to extrapolate with statistics, and they create visual representations, trends. You can do it macro, micro. You can do international macro, and then on your country in a micro versus. There's all kinds of things you can do, and you can pick different areas. But I want to go through this as it really is, what things really mean, what the next 3 years of USA deficits are all about before they promise to start balancing the budget. And people are all up in arms. Elon Musk did a number on Donald J. Trump. That came in last night. And Doge, and everybody talking about Doge. I know a lot of people on the page, why won't you publish my videos? Because they're in error. A lot of things I want to go through are in error. And I want this, which is super critical. I've said this over and over and over again. The Republican Party of the United States, the judiciary and everything that is the Republican Party, is based on originalist. This is what political theater calls the alt-right, these right justices. And we really got to tell you what that means, and iron and hammer this home through ironclad, not negotiable by anyone in the world. Doesn't matter what country it is, originalist or interpretive, when it comes to looking at constitutions. Now, originalist, which is the Republicans entirely, and what are called Republican justices, meaning they take a constitutional document, they open it up, they read it article by article all the way through, and in the USA's situation and design, at the end of the document are all the amendments that have ever been made to it, which there are 27. It's not the end-all and be-all of the Constitution of the United States. Key moments in time, Reconstruction phase, independence, post-independence phase, naturalization through immigration. We can go on and on, prohibition. There's others. There's lots of other periods, right? There's 27. But folks, it's not the end-all and be-all. There's articles in there. People are trying to talk about old documents of the United States and saying, oh, well, these articles of the first Constitution matter. No, the Constitution was replaced. Is that history? Can interpretive justices, which are the left justices, take that stuff and use it to interpret what they think things should be now, today, or even in other laws and international laws, whether they're binding or not? That's the left. Making it work for your narrative. not what the original texts that are in power, decided by the people today, and how those are written. Originalist justices who interpret Constitution, that's the judiciary. They interpret the highest laws of the land, all laws of the land that the legislative branch makes, and who enforces the judgments of the justice system, the executive branch. That is generally the world. Generally the world. How those branches work or how fused they are with each other or powers of corruption of those branches vary tremendously throughout the world. But for all intents and purposes, when you take documents, say, I'm interpreting it this way, I'm going to grab documents out of time and out of context and say, well, I'm restoring this document to mean something today, even though it was replaced, completely what's called dismembered, and then a new one placed in its place that the people accepted, and it's gone through history, the current. That's called interpretive. That is called far left. For all of you, so Canadians, even people in my party, when you start playing interpretive, you're playing in left field, way over on the left. Over on the right is originalist, meaning this is the document, this is cemented, this is exactly what it says as it was written in its time, not dismembered, not redesigned, not amended, not removed, still there, survived, nobody got it removed, as it's written, as it means today, because it's still in force. Nobody could get majorities to have that removed. That's originalist. By the law, the written law, as it is. People who want to go outside of that or say, you know what, I don't like what that says or what it means, so I'm going to read something else or look somewhere else to find an interpretation that I can kind of cast aside. That's left. Originalist right. This is huge. This is huge. People need to understand that. Articles of Confederation. A lot of people trying to post that too. That was the original Constitution of the United States that lasted independence all the way up to 1787. Does it have merit and value in historical sense? And in some cases, sure. Has justices ruled that way and created common law precedent? Sure. But if absence of common law, which is what USA is, as is a majority of Canada outside of Quebec, which is civil law, not common law, not the law of precedent, the law of the legislative authority. And the legislative authority interprets it and says, this is what we wrote. You will make your judgments based on what we've written into law. Civil code, civil law. That's how it works. That's it. And a lot of people try to steer away from that. When you do that, you remove yourself from narratives of real conservatives on that physical or originalist spectrum, and you're actually way over in the far left. So that's something I want to warn Canadians, and it shows in our political system as it shows in the majority of political systems. Now, I don't want to get too far off track. I just want to hit those points home. I want to get into the budget. I want to talk about what has happened here, what's so critical of Canada 51, what we're doing, why it's the cherished 51st state, and it's central to Donald J. Trump and the Republicans. We're fighting hard. We're also going to look at what I've already gone through this week, but on the representative that is a congresswoman, Elise Stefanik, who can't get ascended. The Republicans won't even vote to put her through confirmation now because they just had to hammer this budget that they barely passed. 217 to 215. And if they ascend her to UNSC, which they need filled, the international rep, they've got lots of treaties to iron out, lots to do, you're going to be left with a flippity-floppity Kentucky congressperson who could easily tie it. I mean, it goes to vote anyway, but you could also lose a lot of things in your majority a little bit scary. And then you're forced to work with the Democrats and make their amendments. I mean, we're not out of the water yet. Senate still has to go through the budget. They can put forward changes that could even be more physically conservative. But as it stands now, deficits and Elon Musk slamming and stabbing Donald J. Trump. And I'm going to go through what's actually written there and what's on the docket today, what was passed in Congress, being forwarded on to Senate for final review and changes that then will be thrown back to Congress and they'll make decisions. But without further ado, we're going to go through these. And international law right now, where we're at with the UNSC versus the General Assembly, where Canada and Britain are, UK, against pretty much, well, they're with the corrupted system that France has turned its back on. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into that in great detail. So I'm just going to blow this up. Just so everybody knows that I read it. I mean, I'm not going to put the multitude of pages, but this is where you actually find it. It's Resolution 414, establishing the congressional budget for the United States government for the fiscal year 2025, setting forth the appropriate budget levels for the fiscal years 2025 through to 2034. So I know, see that? So 2026 through 2034. So it's 10 years, right? Add 2025, 2026, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. Okay. See, that shifted. Make sure I got that. So this is on the UNSC, and I'm going to tie these things together. Washington's diplomats had urged the other countries to vote against the measure and to instead support the forward-looking resolution. That was only 3 short paragraphs. It took a neutral stance on the war without blaming Russia and called for a swift end and lasting peace to follow. Washington not only introduced their measure in the General Assembly, where every nation's vote is equal, but also in the more powerful, what did I tell you, Security Council. Resolutions there are legally binding. Do you guys got that? This is worldwide in news all over the world, because this is the law that Canadians really don't understand. And your government has done this to you. So what do we know here? And this is global news everywhere, all over the world, except in Canada. Washington not only introduced their measure in the General Assembly, where every nation's vote is equal, but also in the more powerful Security Council. Resolutions there are legally binding, meaning forced on every country. So all of this Green New Deal, Sustainable Development Goals, carbon pricing, carbon tax, International Migrant Organization and Mass Immigration Canada, Century Initiative, we can go on and on, C40 cities, 15-minute cities, the list goes on and on, Agenda 2021, Agenda 2030, Agenda 2050, none of these ever made it to the Security Council, and in fact were all vetoed, even in the General Assembly, meaning they couldn't even make it ever in history, folks. And there's a lot more than that. In most of these that Canada has in place has never even made it to the Security Council, because even in the General Assembly, if one of the P5 permanent members of the Security Council, 5 of them, votes no, it's a veto. And you've lost. Doesn't matter if it's 192 versus 1. If it's Russia, if it's USA, if it's UK, if it's France, or if it's China, it's no. And it can never be international law. But countries will still enforce it on all of their people if they want to. But the world won't recognize it. It can't recognize it. If you want it to be forced, you have to declare war against the allies of World War II. We're going to get to this in a minute. So Think of it. Though sometimes hard to enforce, and there have never been council action on Ukraine because of Russia's veto power as a permanent member, meaning nobody can stop Russia unless you declare war against Russia. And USA is now with Russia, as you all just saw that I reported to you over the last 3 days, and even Macron has signed on. They've got penmanship. It's 3/5 of the UNSC together against, and I'm not even going to say against, but so far it's only against UK. China is no way ever going to go against Russia, even though they're mad at USA, and those two are going at it. But there's only one country China hates more than USA, and that would be UK, which now includes us, Canada, because we follow along. And for those paying attention, I know people are posting, oh, Trudeau sent a bunch of money, he's going to declare war on Ukraine and send. No, that's not going to happen. UK can ask us to help out, but it's not going to happen. And we'll get into that. But yes, it's a stain on Canada. It's destructive. This is both, so everybody knows, this isn't just Trudeau. This is Pierre Poilievre too. He has said, we hate Russia. Russia doesn't belong. We're not going to follow anything. But yet USA is completely going the other way. As of today, folks, this is breaking news. Not only the budget, but this is breaking news, and we got to get into this. So the move caught Europe off guard. One European diplomat told the BBC, which is UK news, who's UK, and this is very important for everybody. Once again, UK did Brexit, sorry, hold on. Been a long day, I'm sorry, I'm very tired. I know I need rest. But, so this is BBC UK. They said that USA behaved like a bully and did not take into account their stance on the continent's security. Well, folks, Europe is no longer under UK authority. As you all know, it's Brexit. Who is the European Union under now with the full UNSC authority? Who's their P5 member supreme? Well, that's France. UK stupidly walked out of the European Union and left that veto power to now France, who made a deal with USA, as you all just saw the day before. So understand that. UK can't save the European Union. The European Union is under France. And then all of us in the Commonwealth are suckered into supporting the UK. We're bound to them for all of our breaches of international law, which are severe and serious. USA's calling us out on it. And now Russia's lined up to say, yeah, we hate Canada too. We told you this. And they both are looking at UK now going, look, they're showing their true colors. Are you ready? And it looks like Donald J. Trump and Vladimir Putin are going to make a deal. So another who sits on the Security Council, which is rotating, these are rotating members. Canada's been banned entirely from the United Nations Security Council since Stephen Harper defunded military to the lowest levels ever recorded in Canadian history since World War II. I mean, brutal. Not that Justin Trudeau's much better, but he halved the half into 0.9%. This is how bad it is. And we were thrown off of the UNSC and told never to return. More since 1993, and you guys all know Paris Accord and all of that with UK and France, who shared the European Union, convinced Canada to agree to all that. And then when Canada was called out by the other allies, they removed themselves from the authority of the International Court of Justice and created their own British system, International Commission of Jurists, just like a colony. You can find that letter. It's liberal, 1994, on the backs of who? Brian Mulroney, 1991, who began huge assaults on the United States. One ratified a vetoed law called parental rights, And since 1991, started in 89, but cemented in 1991 by Brian Mulroney. You can see his speech on the UN. He did the rights of a child. He stood against the United States and said, no, Canadian subjects and savages don't deserve parental rights. The state should have the rights over their children, and we won't be prosecuted for any of our crimes because some of them aren't human beings and some are even slaves, basically, right? They're not real people. They're not real citizens like you define them. That's the sad reality here. So, Slovenia, that Europe's struggling to adjust to the 180-degree change in the U.S. position and the speed at which Washington's moving. He said the European Union will need to do some reflecting at the body's council meeting next week. We already know what that council meeting is going to be, everybody. So if you don't like propaganda, I can tell you right now, we all saw it, whether you want to admit it or not or watch it. Macron signed on, who has the authority as a UNSCP 5 member, the veto power on behalf of the European Union, who signs them off, leader of the European Union, no one can stop France, and said, USA, we're with you and we'll make a deal with Russia. We will help you as long as there's a security guarantee. And that's all Europe's going to get. So don't listen to the BBC. Don't listen to news, who also runs down the USA Today on their budget. We're going to get into that in a minute and tie all this together because USA is struggling. So leaders will have to develop a plan on how the EU can actively be involved in finding peace rather than reacting to what others are doing. It's up to us now in Europe to come forward, he told the BBC. There were plenty of reactions in the halls of the UN headquarters in New York as European leaders worked to reconcile with the latest U.S. position. So you can see there, U.S. United Kingdom, and that's Barbara Woodward, who's never ever answered me. To the right of her is the United States, and where's USA's rep? That's not Elise Stefanik because she can't get confirmed right now. Trump's kind of tossed up because he just had to pass a budget he barely passed. And that's why this is bad. Europe, especially Britain, is launching massive propaganda against the United States, making fun of them that they don't have their representative. Ha ha ha. USA stuck under the old regime, the Democrats, right? But they're going to get through it, right? And that's where I get to here. So, So 7 hours ago, right, everyone's making fun of Stefanik's confirmation is on ice as Republicans have to guard for the budget, budget measures that aren't exactly where they want to be. And they didn't get what they wanted out of Doge. Elon and his team went through it. The only thing they could get out of that 30 some million dollars was $1 trillion. Not much. Where is the massive money? Well, health bankruptcies, Medicare, Medicaid, put them all together, $7 trillion a year. That clearly puts USA $5 trillion under their budget. Or sorry, $5 trillion under the budget. 2 would pay down what they have and then 5 more to bring them that far under the ceiling cap that's supposed to be in place for the budget. Now, Trump inherited this, you guys. You know, he's only been in office for 1 month. Rome isn't built in a day. He's stuck eating a $4 trillion deficit this year. We knew that. He's extending deficits with a limit on $2 trillion, maximum they can do with checks and balances, best they could do to save the job, cut taxes. No, everybody, right now as it stands, there's no removal of overtime taxes. There's maybe some wiggle room for tips, but that's not even cemented now. They've barely made the job cut and taxes legislation that was due to expire. They've barely squeaked that through, wanting a vote 217 to 250, meaning a vote or two the other way, game over. And it was sketchy. Trump had to come in over all day up to tonight just to get that done and that gone through. I want to tell you why Trump can't. And this is deadly accurate. And I said this earlier, this is huge. Nobody else is going to tell you this, not from the UK, especially not from Canada or anybody else in the Commonwealth. I read their tremendous document. I read it. And we got to the point where there's been a massive increase in monies. And do you know what that is, Canadians? It's the pension plans. It's what's called Old Age Security USA. For all those who ever worked in America their whole lives, it's tremendously more than our CPP and combined old age security. Even when you get to 65, ours is pittance. I think it's up with the 3-tier CPP to $1,433 a month if you worked 42 years straight, maxed pension contributions, which many Canadians can never get. In fact, Canadians on average right now today, the average CPP is 808 Canadian. You can't even live. You're a bum in Canada. You're living on the street if 808 is all you have after working 42 years full-time of your life. Think about that, the average Canadian. You're living as a homeless bum on the street. And so then the Canadian government says, well, we got old age security that we take from taxpayers, that every taxpayer has to fund. And anyone qualifies when they hit 65, whether they worked or not, meaning all new Canadians, even if they haven't even really been in Canada, that there's a limit on how many years, but it's so minute, they could never pay what they're taking out. It's a huge bleed. So that's another $707. This is new on this 1433. Again, that's today for anyone who's 18 years old today. If you are like me and you're 47 and you've only got 12 years, or sorry, minus 2, so 18 years left. Let's say I wanted to work 18 years. I could never get to the 1433 because of all the previous years of service in my life. I don't have enough years of service at that contribution rate. So I'll never see the 1433. Maybe a little bit more than 1300 would be accurate if nothing else changes. But that's as far as I could go. And of course, my taxes go up too, right? So you got to pay more for those who draw old age security, all the people who don't work. So what happened with USA Today and what's in the report on this 10-year budget plan, folks? $4.5 trillion cut to deficit spending is over 10 years. Do the math. $450 billion a year is as far as the Republicans are going to go to cut as it stands today. It's still a tremendous amount more than anybody else because nobody's ever cut, except for they want to run deficits for these 3 years. And they say by year 4, when we turn the economy around, it's all going to be good. We just got to win midterms. And really, this is where we get into Canada, the 51st state. Whether people want to hear this or not, USA is incapable of ending the horrific, centralized, very socialist, absolutely socialist healthcare public system in the United States. Meaning Americans who are over the age of 14, who are not pregnant, are not working for federal government or some state governments, and are under the age of 65, don't get any public health care, but are absolutely and 100% taxed and responsible for it. So they have to pay it, but they're not eligible to get any of that public health care. So understand that as American today, that's how it's divided. Only 45% of Americans pay absolutely 100% into the public health care, but are not allowed to use it. And it's a two-tiered system, but it's 45% who pay for it are never allowed to use it. You don't qualify. The other 55% qualify and they absolutely use it and they don't contribute into it. At most, working government would pay 10% of their tax yield into it, meaning it's almost 90% for certain taken from those, again, who don't qualify for it. People have to understand this. There's no way to amend the Constitution right now. It would take a state to challenge that, and none of them want to because they don't want to deal with the public system. They don't want to be responsible for their public health. That would be tremendously cheaper in a regional system. How do we know this? Because that's exactly how Canada runs. If Donald J. Trump, in these 2 years, if we had the power, and it's all over, I'm going to go back here because I'm talking about this. Oh, there it is. So right here. It's all over this budget, everything you want to read into it. Elon didn't save anything, hardly. He didn't bring anything to the table. I mean, it's great. You stopped $1 trillion in thefts. That's great. But to run it down and then blame, folks, Canada, the 51st state, whether you like it or not, or you're angry, our public health care system is 2.5 times cheaper than the American public system. And we cover every Canadian, meaning more than it's something like I did this. It was like 116%. No, it's actually 121%. Our problem today, Canadians, is that 21% of the people on it don't belong there, don't contribute to it, and your government's doing this through mass immigration. That's what's been killing you and your budgets. It's also eroding your old age security, the socialist one, not USA's version. And I wanted to hit that point too. So Donald J. Trump and the Republicans made a decision in this budget. Did you know that when you go read this budget, here's the most epic thing of this. In there's the report of the status of old age security for Americans. If left unfunded, meaning left to the American system as it is, Donald Trump had to make a decision. The Congress of the Republicans had to make a major decision here. And why they couldn't save big money. Those who've worked their whole lives, over the next 10 years, that 2034, do you know what would happen to old age security if left untouched? Republicans made a choice to more than add 35% funding to it in this budget for the next 10 years because it rolls out that all Americans will be reduced in their old age security to 79% by 2034. That's why you're seeing a 10-year plan, and each and every year they add massive to old age security to make up for the losses, the inflation, the shortfall on Americans. They made a choice. You can call it socialism, but Americans work their whole lives. So imagine you're an American who's worked and you're promised and you're supposed to get $2,100 a month old age security as a minimum wage worker, and you can't afford to get into all these other private plans. They're not available to you anyway, but you've worked your whole life and all you're going to get is that $2,100 USD, which is substantially more than the Canadian system. They made a choice to say, you know what? We won't compromise like Canada did more than 30 years ago. We won't lie to our American people. We are going to fund that to levels that will ensure that the minimum standard of living that's articulated in law in the United States, what the average American needs to live and survive, the minimum standard of living, will be met for old age security for every American who works. And that's what Donald J. Trump did in this. And he took a major hit, and all the physicals are giving him the gears. And he saved the Job Cuts Act that was going to expire for businesses. And, folks, every American family got double the credit, meaning double the tax return. Instead of $12,000, $24,000. Instead of the individual $6,000, it's $12,000. You know that as Canadians, can you imagine getting double the tax credit? Like, let's say I know every province is different. I'm just going to use Alberta because I know it. So I think it's 21,000. Imagine this Job Cuts Act, and they go 42,000 from 21,000. No taxes for your first 42,000, and a family 84,000. Just imagine that. Imagine the difference. That's what this did, contrary to what everybody tells you. If you don't believe me, go read this document. It's very long. Take your time. You'll get to it. It's a download. I give it to you right here. In fact, I think it's the next page. No, I guess I gotta go back. I'm sorry. Yeah, so here's the download right there. Yeah, tracker, House Committee reports 119 for you. Click on that. You download the tremendous document, plus all of their fighting and back and forths, going back to last week on the 18th. I read it all. I read it all, and I read everything, and I've literally myth busted almost everybody. And what's really sick is that Canadian media wouldn't even highlight the two most major things about this budget, like the real soul search of it, the love of the American people. And yes, it's costed Trump heavy. It's costed him tremendous amount, but he's funding all those Americans, ensuring they have the minimum standard of living until they can make a change. What is that change that he needs? What is it he covets more than anything else? And everything he said, Canada 51, he wants that health care. And you're going, well, how is Canada as a state going to do that? Well, we get through the Congress Enabling Act. We have the right to health care. Canadians are not going to give up their health care if they go 51st state. They love it. They should love it. At least that public system is beautiful. You just got to get rid of all the freeloaders off it that your government threw to overwhelm it and create all the lines that are screwing you over. Because I promise you, it's massively cheaper than the American system. Not only does it cost 2.5 times less, it covers more than 2 times the people. Almost, it's 120% the people, meaning like 2 and then a fifth some more. So people don't know that or don't see it. Trump knows that. Trump sees that. He also knows that if Canada was a 51st state, the only amendment procedure and the only state of the union that would sue because they have the better system, and that Canadians wouldn't want to eat because they'd have their own health care. Yeah, that's no problem. But then they're going to require you to pay for all those on the other public system, plus all the bankruptcies of the rest of America. Take your share. Well, no, we're going to challenge you in the Supreme Court of the United States. And it doesn't even matter whether it is originalist or interpretive. Doesn't matter what kind of judge you get. Right now it's 6-3, six originalists, 3 interpretive. They will side with Canada, the 51st state. Donald J. Trump, the GOP know this. They need you to shut down this tremendous socialism and broken system. I know it sounds funny. You're like, what? How is it USA's healthcare is more socialist, extremist, almost like a communism, folks? It really is. It's that old. It doesn't really match what America is. It's not a district system. It's federal centralized. And it's not equality of the person. It's assigned equity of the person. Because why? Because it's developed from those expired Articles of Confederation. What do I mean? Well, it was the Congressional Army that those first Constitution was that army that was made from the first Constitution, and that survived, and that's how they based the system, which is not in the Constitution, the living, real, in-place Constitution today. So what happens? Canada challenges in the Supreme Court. Canada wins. And guess what the federal government of the United States gets to do, everybody? They get to say, oh, just like what they did with the American Indians, they say, okay, 50 states, just like they did with the American Indians, you either codify this healthcare system based on the tremendous savings and the authority and that system of Canada, the 51st state, that saves tremendous money, we will support them. We will federally fund them because they're 2.5 times less and they promise to cover more people with better services. And they're going to force that on all the other 50 states. They're going to say, sorry, we won't fund you. Just like Indian bands that don't constitute, you won't get that power of the state. So in this case, there'll be health care funding for the 50 states that the federal pays at a 2.5 times the rate Canada's does. And it's amazing, really, when you look at it by the numbers. And this isn't even bankruptcies. $7 trillion a year. It's the largest waste in America that apparently Elon Musk and his giant brain can't see. He sees it. He just doesn't care. He's from South Africa, Canada. They didn't get dismembered. He believes that his class is superior and that people don't deserve shit. He definitely ran this down, and the news, all leftist media, to be honest here, all those with the old world order, couldn't even tell you that Donald J. Trump saved the minimum standard of living for all old age security receiving Americans till 2034. He gave up his ability to make massive economic changes just to make sure not one American would lose their pension by 2034. And it's in there. You can see it. You can see all the Democrat and Republican Congress people talk about it. What's amazing is how could the media miss that, right? There's more. There's lots more, but this is a major one. And Donald J. Trump is hoping and praying that his Canada 51st state comes to save the day. $7 trillion. That's what you promised to change in the United States. And what you also promised to give healthcare universally for everybody, throwing away their broken, almost communist system, highly centralized, all for the public sector, largely at the expense of private working sector Americans and corporations. In fact, it's such a drain, and I've analyzed what I've always called viable social programs. Canada actually does, just by healthcare alone, is able to outcompete USA in business costs and its employee ones, because all the responsibility of that 45% working is placed on the employer largely. That's something they have to bill in their products, whereas in Canada, that doesn't happen. You all know that. We all pay it out of our provincial taxes, which again is 3% out of what percentage, which means, yes, it can range from upwards at the provincial level of 28 to as high as almost 40% of our budget. But in real taxes against you working, if your provincial tax, like Alberta, let's just say, I know it's not 10% anymore. I know it's higher with the averages, but let's just say, okay, 10.5%. Only 3% of that 10.4 of your taxes goes to healthcare. For example, right? Ontario, it's even a little less than that, right? So it is a big deal if the states took that and USA saved that money. It's a tremendous savings that would literally iron everything out for the Republicans. And this is everything that Donald J. Trump covets from Canada 51. He doesn't think we're going to make it. They're betting that we're not. They're already extending, trying to get to after midterms. We can't do that, folks. Anyone in this party, we've got to deliver. We've got to deliver before Carney's calling the election. And I'm pretty sure that's how it's going to go. I actually hope it doesn't. I hope we do have all the way to October, which is the final load limit they could possibly get if Jagmeet covered them. I can't stand it either, but I know we need to deliver this. But we've got to fight like cats and dogs here and try to deliver this for writ drop April 15th. We have to look at it like that's when it's going to happen, and that means an election for the middle of May. And there's reasons for that, because they have to release the budget. The only way they can get it pushed through is if Jagmeet goes with it. But I don't think he will. He's taken such a beating in the NDP side that if they don't throw them out and call an election, they might not even be a party anymore, you know. So anyhow, that's my video. This is real, credible, verifiable. Sorry, I should have blown that up. You won't get this presentation from anybody. Don't trust media. I'm sorry to people on the page. I know not everybody watches these, but I can't let false or manipulated things go through. I've already seen on the page, and I got to reading this. I'm like, I am not publishing people's opinion videos or interpretive videos. It's the mark of an extreme leftist and usually a liar. And I hate to have to say that. I'm not trying to politicize the judicial system of the United States, but it really is. When you go and you start interpreting law and not reading it as it is or as it's accurately portrayed, you're actually following through with the extreme left side of society. And all Americans see you that way. This is how Americans look at Canadians and say, oh, you're extreme nutty leftists. That's why. And these terms are important. These understandings are important. Anyways, everybody, I'm exhausted. I got to be up at 5 tomorrow, so I'm going to call her a night. God bless. Thanks. Share. Get it out there. Bye now.